Every day he brought a stone to her. Memorial, after 1,000 days the stones came to life, recreating her, the goddess who had renounced immortality. For him, the red dawn broke over the jagged horizon, casting long shadows. Across the barren valley, Argo knelt. Beside the stone altar, his massive hands placing another rock carefully at top the growing pile, 100 US1, this would be the 999th stone. Tomorrow would mark the completion of his task. 1,000 days of devotion, 1,000 stones reaching toward the stars, his muscles dense and powerful from a lifetime under Terran 2's crushing. Double gravity flexed as he adjusted the stone to perfect balance. No creature born of Earth could stand upright here for more than minutes without collapse. But Argo and his people, the Hadassi, had evolved on this brutal world. Their bodies were compact, fortresses of sinew and bone built to endure what would crush ordinary humans. Humans like Alina, the memory of her struck him like a physical blow. Every day it was the same, the pain as fresh as the day she drew her final breath in. His arms, he remembered her delicate fingers gripping his hand, her strange pale skin turned ashen as the life drained from her. The tribal healers had refused to help, calling her a presence, an abomination. They said her death was necessary to restore balance. Argo had never forgiven them for that. He closed his eyes, momentarily overwhelmed by the memory of their last moments together. Alina had known she was dying. The relentless gravity of Terran 2 had slowly crushed her internal organs. Despite all his efforts to help her adapt on her final night as rain battered the small shelter he had built for her, she had asked him to carry her outside. I want to see the stars once more, she had whispered, her voice barely audible. He had wrapped her in furs and held her in his arms, stepping out into the downpour. By some miracle, the clouds had parted briefly, revealing a patch of night sky filled with stars. There, she had said, pointing with a trembling finger, third bright star from the left of that formation. That's my sun, that's where Earth is. Her eyes had found his, fever bright yet determined. Promise me something, Argo. Anything, he had replied, tears mixing with the rain on his face. Don't let me be forgotten. Among my people we built monuments to remember those we've lost. The memory shattered as a voice spoke. From behind him, the stone tower grows. Impressive, came Tovold's growly tone. The old hunter had been the only one from the tribe who still bothered to check on him despite the banishment. Tomorrow will be the last stone, Argo said, his voice rough from disuse. And then Tovold stepped closer, his blue tinged skin wrinkled with age, but his eyes still sharp. Then her spirit can climb to the stars to return home. Tovold grunted. The council wonders if you will return it to us after your ritual is complete. Argo finally turned. The old hunter flinched at the sight of him. Argo knew what he must look like. His once proud tribal markings faded. His body leaner but somehow more dangerous. 999 days of solitude, hunting and building had transformed him. The council exiled me, Argo stated flatly. They called Alina harbinger of doom, a curse upon our people. Times are desperate, Torvald replied. The hunting grows worse. River beasts migrate elsewhere. The council, they have reconsidered your skills. Argo laughed, a harsh sound that echoed across the empty plain. They want the weapons that I've learned to craft, the hunting methods she taught me. Your People starve, Argo, Torvald said. Softly, pride is a luxury we cannot afford. My people cast me out when I needed them most. Argo turned back to his tower. Return tomorrow if you wish to witness the completion of my vow. After that we will speak of the future. Torvald hesitated, then nodded and departed, leaving Argo alone with his memories and his stones. Argo ran his calloused hand along the surface of the tower. Each stone had been selected with care. Not just any rock would do. They needed to be a specific shade of deep blue with veins of silver running through them. Alina had been fascinated by them, calling them beautiful. He'd never thought of the common stones that way until seeing them through her eyes. What he never told the tribe, what he barely admitted to himself, was that these were not ordinary stones. He had found them in the nesting grounds of the azurite flyers, those massive winged beasts that soared high above the plains. The stones were smooth and oddly warm to the touch. Alina had collected several, keeping them in her shelter. The first time he'd brought her one, her eyes had lit up with that curiosity that defined her. She'd spent hours examining it, making notes in her strange symbols, muttering words he didn't understand. Silicone-based, biothermic, crystalline resonance. When he asked what made them special, she had smiled in that way that made his heart race. They're alive, Argo, she had said, not like you and me, but alive in their own way. They respond to touch, to sound, to energy patterns they're learning. He hadn't understood then. He wasn't sure he understood now, but he trusted her knowledge, her science as she called it. And so for 999 days he had collected these special stones, handling them with reverence, speaking to them, telling them stories of Alina, her kindness, her intelligence, her courage in the face of a world that was literally crushing her. After she died, he'd found her notes about the stones in her strange symbols that she taught him to decipher. She had written theories about their composition. He hadn't understood all of it, but he grasped enough to know she believed they were special. Their outer shells were remarkably strong. Evolutionary adaptation to extreme pressure, Alina had written, yet the interior remained responsive to external stimuli, sacred in a way her scientific mind rarely allowed. The sun climbed higher as Argo prepared for his daily ritual. From a small pouch at his waist, he withdrew a lock of Alina's hair, one of the few physical mementos he had kept of her. He pressed it against the newly placed stone, holding it there as he recited the words she had taught him, words from her language, from Earth, words of remembrance and honor. I carry your heart with me, he whispered, the foreign sound still awkward on his tongue despite years of practice. I carry it in my heart, a poem she had called it, something her people used to express feelings too complex for ordinary speech. He had memorized it for her, struggling with the unfamiliar sounds, making her laugh with his mistakes. Now those same words were a sacred incantation, a bridge between worlds. As night approached, Argo gathered his weapons, a spear with a bone tip hardened in fire, as Alina had taught him, a bow strung with sinew, and a knife fashioned from a shard of her fallen ship. The hunting would be dangerous in darkness, but necessity drove him. He needed meat, not for himself, but for what would come. Tomorrow, the plains of Terran too transformed at night. Creatures that hid from the scorching sun emerged, many with bioluminescent markings that pulsed in the darkness. The moon had not yet risen, leaving only starlight to guide his path. Argo moved silently, his feet finding purchase on the rocky terrain. Without hesitation, 3 years ago he would have hunted with a group, relying on the tribe's traditional methods. Now, he hunted alone, using techniques Alina had described from other worlds. He remembered her words as she explained the concept of ambush predation, a term from her world. Sometimes the strongest hunter isn't the one who chases fastest, but the one who waits most patiently. She had said. He had laughed then. Patience was not the Hadassi way. They were pursuit hunters, relying on their superior endurance to exhaust prey over long distances. But as food grew scarce and his isolation forced adaptation, he had learned the value of her methods. Sound ahead, the distinctive clicking of a spine crawler, a predator with 6 legs and razor-sharp mandibles, too dangerous to confront directly. Argo changed course, circling downwind. His patience was rewarded an hour later when he spotted his true prey, a thornback herbivore roughly the size of an earth bison with armored plates protecting its sides. The creature grazed nervously, aware of the dangers that night brought. Argo notched an arrow, drew back the powerful bow, another innovation Alina had helped refine, and released. The arrow flew true, striking the gap between armor plates. The thornback bellowed and charged blindly, but Argo was already moving, circling to strike. Again from another angle, 3 more arrows, and the beast finally collapsed. Argo approached cautiously, knife ready. The thornback's eyes, large and liquid, watched him without comprehension. He spoke the ritual words of his people, thanking the beast for its sacrifice, then ended its suffering with a quick, precise cut. The butchering took time. He would need to work quickly to avoid attracting predators. As he separated meat from bone, his mind drifted back to the day everything changed, the day Alina fell from the sky. The tribe had been gathered for the renewal ceremony, the annual celebration of survival on this harsh world. Argo, then the tribe's most promising young hunter, had been selected to lead the ritual hunt. His spear had just taken down a prized ridge serpent when the sky split open with fire and thunder. The object, what he would later learn, was a ship streaking across the heavens, leaving a trail of smoke and debris before crashing beyond the western ridge. The elders declared it an ill omen and forbade anyone from investigating, but Argo, always more curious than fearful, had slipped away from the celebration. The journey to the crash site had been arduous, the terrain becoming increasingly treacherous as he approached the western ridge. Strained metal fragments littered the ground, some still hot to the touch. The crater itself was smaller than he expected, the ship having broken apart during its descent. That's where he found her, half buried in debris, blood seeping from a gash on her forehead, her strained clothing torn. At first he thought she was dead, then her eyes opened, eyes of a color he had never seen before, like the clearest water of the sacred pools. Help, she had whispered in a language he didn't understand, but the meaning was clear against all his people's traditions. Argo had lifted her from the wreckage. She weighed almost nothing in his powerful arms, so fragile that he feared she might break. He took her to an abandoned hunter's shelter far from the tribe's village. For days he tended her wounds, bringing water and what food he could spare. Gradually her strength returned, and with it a curiosity that matched his own. She began to teach him her language and he taught her his. They called each other a name, Alina and Argo, a private bond between them. She explained that she was a xenobiologist, whatever that meant, sent to study Terran 2 from orbit. Something had gone wrong with her ship, forcing her to use an escape pod that malfunctioned during descent. Her people would come looking, she assured him, but it might take time. Perhaps seasons. Argo had nodded, not fully understanding, but committed to keeping her safe until then. He couldn't have known that her people would never arrive, that the malfunction had disabled her communication devices, that they likely believed her dead. He couldn't have known that by saving her, he was setting in motion events that would change everything. Those first weeks with Alina had been filled with wonder. She had shown him strain devices from her ship, tools that could capture images, measure invisible properties of air and water, and generate light without fire. In return, he had taught her about the plants and animals of his world, the seasons and weather patterns, the tribal customs that governed everyday life. Their growing bond had not gone unnoticed. When Argo failed to return to the village for days, search parties were sent out. Varric, the tribe's most skilled tracker, had found them together, Alina examining a blue stone while Argo explained the hunting patterns of the Azurite flyers. Varric's reaction had been immediate and violent. He had raised his spear, calling Alina a demon, a trick of the sky to lure away the tribe's best hunter. Argo had been forced to fight his own tribesmen, disarming him and demanding he listen. Reluctantly, Varric had agreed to observe Alina for one day before reporting back to the council. That day had changed everything. He witnessed Alina's gentle nature, her fascination with the world around her, her respectful curiosity about Hadrasi traditions. By evening, his suspicion had given way to cautious acceptance. She is strange, Varric had admitted to Argo as they shared a meal outside the shelter, but not evil. I think, with Varric's tepid support, Argo had been allowed to continue sheltering Alina, though the council demanded she remain away from the village itself. For a season, this arrangement had worked. Alina's health improved, and she began accompanying Argo on short expeditions, studying the flora and fauna of Terranu with boundless enthusiasm. Then came the drought. Water sources dried up, game animals migrated away, and the tribe began to suffer. Some blamed Alina, claiming her presence had angered the spirits. When a child fell ill with a mysterious fever, the whispers grew louder. Alina had recognized the symptoms, similar to diseases she knew from other worlds. She requested permission to treat the child using medical supplies from her crash kit. Tribal healers refused, insisting that traditional remedies would suffice. The child died 3 days later. More fell ill. Alina begged to help, offering knowledge that could save lives. Argo supported her, challenging the council directly. For his defiance, he was beaten and confined. By the time he escaped his imprisonment, Alina had taken matters into her own hands. She had entered the village under cover of darkness, treating the sick with medicines from her supplies. Many began to recover, but the exertion in Terran 2's crushing gravity combined with exposure to the disease proved too much for her Earth adapted body. Argo found her collapsed outside the healing hut, struggling to breathe. He carried her back to their shelter, watching helplessly as her condition deteriorated. the tribal healers, despite seeing the evidence of her successful treatments, refused to help the found a demon, and so she had died in his arms under the stars she had come so far to study. A growl snapped. Argo back to the present, spine crawlers. Attracted by the blood, 3 of them. Approaching from different angles. Mandibles clicking in anticipation. He had lingered too long, lost in memories. Abandoning half the meat, Argo hoisted what he could carry onto his shoulders and prepared to run, but the predators had positioned themselves strategically. Cutting off his escape routes, they were hunting as a pack, unusual behavior that suggested extreme hunger. The food shortages Toval mentioned were affecting all creatures, it seemed. Argo dropped the meat, freeing his hands for his weapons. His spear would be most effective, allowing him to keep the creatures at bay. He backed toward a rock formation, ensuring they couldn't circle behind him. The largest crawler charged first, its 6 legs propelling it forward with frightening speed. Argo braced his spear, timing his thrust to catch the creature at the junction of its head. In thorax, the spear tip penetrated the exoskeleton with a sickening crack. The creature thrashed, nearly wrenching the weapon from his grip, but Argo held firm, driving the spear deeper until the crawler stopped moving. The other 2 attacked simultaneously. Argo abandoned the embedded spear. Drawing his knife and bow in one fluid motion, he loosed an arrow at the creature to his left, striking it in the eye. It screeched and retreated, wounded but not killed. The 3rd crawler lunged at his legs. Argo leaped higher than any Earth human could manage, using Terran 2's gravity to his advantage. The predator's mandible snapped shut on empty air. As he descended, Argo drove his knife into the creature's back, severing its central nerve cluster. It collapsed, legs twitching. The wounded crawler circled, wearily assessing its chances. Argo notched another arrow, but before he could release, a spear flew from the darkness, impaling the creature's head. It died instantly. Torvald stepped from the shadows, a grim smile on his weathered face. I thought you might need help. You spend too much time with your stones and not enough watching your back. Argo retrieved his spear from the dead crawler. I didn't ask for your help. No, you never do. Torvald helped him gather the abandoned meat. The council would have me follow you, learn your hunting methods, and will you report what you see? The old hunter shrugged. I will tell them what serves the tribe, perhaps not everything I observe. They worked in silence, wrapping the meat in leaves to preserve it for transport. Finally, Torvald spoke. Again, you truly loved her, this Skywoman. It wasn't a question, but Argo answered, anyway, more than my own life. That is why the council feared her. Love for an outsider divides loyalty. Argo secured the last package of meat. My loyalty was never in question until they made me choose, and you chose her. I chose compassion. I chose to see beyond fear. Argo hefted the meat onto his shoulder. Alina showed me possibilities the tribe couldn't imagine. She never asked me to abandon my people. They abandoned me. Toval's expression softened. Not all of us. The old hunter hesitated, then spoke in a lower voice. There is something else you should know. The southern tribes have been sending scouts into our territory. 3 hunters spotted one yesterday near the sacred pools. Argo frowned. The southern tribes had always been hostile, but they usually respected territorial Boundaries, what do they want? According to our captives, they believe the Skywoman's arrival caused the famine that afflicts their lands as well as ours. They speak of vengeance. Alina has been dead for nearly 3 years. Superstition doesn't follow logic. Torvald said grimly, be vigilant, your tower has not gone unnoticed. They parted ways at the edge of the plain. Torvald returning to the village with his share of the meat, Argo continuing to his solitary shelter near the tower. Neither saw the figure watching from the rigid line above, bow in hand, eyes narrowed with hatred. Argo reached his shelter, a simple lintel constructed against a rock face, and carefully stored the meat. Inside he had arranged Alina's salvaged belongings with reverence, her damaged communication device, the torn remnants of her flight suit, the small metal pendant she had always worn around her neck, bearing the image of an older woman, her mother. She had told him he sat cross-legged before these items, as he did every night, speaking to her in her own language. The words came easier now after years of practice. He told her about the tower, about his encounter with the spine crawlers, about Torvald's warning. He spoke as if she could hear him, as if somewhere among the stars her spirit listened. In the first days after her death, these one-sided conversations had been filled with rage and grief. Why had she been sent to this brutal world? Why? Why had her body failed her? Why had his people rejected her? But over time the anger had given way to acceptance, and then to purpose. The tower became his reason for continuing, his connection to her memory. Just as he was preparing for sleep, a distant howl pierced the night, the hunting cry of a ridge wolf, predator rarely seen in these parts. Argo tensed, reaching for his spear. Wolves hunted in packs, coordinating their attacks with frightening intelligence. One alone was manageable. Many together could bring down even the most skilled warrior. The howl came again, closer this time, answered by another from a different direction. Argo quickly gathered his weapons and climbed to a higher position on the rock face above his shelter. From there he could see the moonlit plain stretching before him. They emerged from the shadows, 7 ridge wolves, their blue-gray fur silvered by moonlight, their eyes reflecting the stars like small moons. They moved with purpose, heading directly toward his shelter. This was no random hunting party. They were being driven. A flicker of movement on the ridge to his left confirmed his suspicion. Human figures, 3 or 4 at least, using burning branches to direct the wolves toward his position. Southern tribe scouts using the predators as weapons. Argo had seconds to decide: flee into the darkness, abandoning his shelter and Alina's belongings, or stand and fight against impossible odds. The decision made itself. He would not leave her memory behind. Notching an arrow, he took aim at the lead wolf and fired. The beast yelped and stumbled. The arrow lodged its shoulder. The pack hesitated. Suddenly wary, Argo loosed another arrow, dropping a second wolf. The others scattered, their formation broken. The figures on the ridge shouted in frustration. Snorts. One raised a bow, firing blindly toward Argo's position. The arrow clattered harmlessly against the rocks below him. Argo remained still, watching as the southern tribe scouts tried to regroup the wolves, but the predators, having lost 2 of their pack, had lost their taste for the hunt. They melted back into the darkness, ignoring the humans' commands. The scouts conferred briefly, then retreated, disappearing over the ridge. They would be back. Argo knew this had been a scouting mission, a test of his defenses. The real attack would come later. Dawn brought heavy clouds and the threat of rain, unusual weather for the season. Argo welcomed it as a good omen. Clear's throat water brought life on Terran too, where droughts could last. For months, he prepared for the day. Ceremony painting his face and chest with traditional Hadassi symbols of journey and rebirth mixed with patterns Elena had once drawn for him. Representations of stars and distant worlds. The final stone waited where he had left it after the night's hunt. Massive blue rock with more pronounced silver veins than any of the others. It had taken weeks to find, buried deep in the azurite flyer's nesting grounds. He had nearly died retrieving it, the parent birds attacking with razor-sharp beaks and talons. His back still bore the scars. Argo built a small fire and placed portions of the thornback meat upon it, an offering to the spirits, and, as tradition demanded, Elena had respected his beliefs even while explaining the science behind the stars and the nature of life. They had found common ground between their different understandings of the universe. Your fire brings unwanted attention, said a voice from behind him. Argo turned, surprised to find Mira, daughter of the chief elder, standing at the edge of his camp. She had grown since he last saw her, the gangly adolescent, now a young woman with the characteristic blue skin of their people, darkened to almost indigo, the mark of approaching adulthood. Why are you here, Mira? Your father would punish you for speaking to an exile. She stepped closer, eyes darting nervously. The village is in turmoil. Hunters report strange creatures in the western ridge. Creatures like none seen before. Some say it is because of your tower that you have disturbed the natural order. Argo continued his preparations, unsurprised by the accusation. The tribe has always blamed the unknown on convenient targets. My father plans to destroy your tower. He says it is an abomination. That got his attention when today he gathers warriors. Now, she hesitated. Toval told me what you plan, the final stone, the completion of your vow. Why would he tell you this? Mira straightened, finding courage. Because I asked. Because I remember the Sky Woman and how she healed my brother when our healers could not. Because what the tribe did to you was wrong. Argo studied her, seeing Elena's influence, the questioning of tradition, the willingness to form her own judgments. Elena had spent many hours teaching the tribe's children, showing them simple experiments, explaining basic principles of her science. Most adults had disapproved, but the children had been fascinated. Mira more than most. What do you want from me, Mira? Complete your vow. I will delay them as long as I can. Before he could question her further, she was gone, disappearing into the morning mist. Argo stared after her, then looked to the tower. He would need to act quickly. The traditional ceremony demanded patience, ritual movements performed in specific sequences, but tradition would have to bend. Argo doused the fire, gathered the final stone, and began his approach to the tower. The structure rose nearly 20 ft. Now a testament to his devotion. Each stone had been carefully positioned for maximum stability, with the wider, flatter stones forming the base and gradually tapering upward, a technique Elena had taught him from Earth architecture principles designed to withstand even Terran II's crushing gravity. 999 stones, each placed with care, each representing a day of memory and promise. The rain began to fall as he circled the base, whispering prayers, some from his people's traditions, others in Alina's language, words she had taught him about her own people's ways of honoring the dead. As he completed the third circle, a strange sensation washed over him. The air seemed to thicken, and the stones of the tower began to emit a low, almost imperceptible hum. Argo paused, hand outstretched toward the structure. The sound was familiar somehow, reminiscent of the tone Alina's communication device had made when she attempted to contact her people. "They're responding to you," she had once told him when he mentioned hearing the stone sing, "To your voice, your touch, your electromagnetic field." He hadn't understood the term, but he understood the wonder in her eyes when she said it. Thunder rumbled across the plain as Argo began to climb. The tower had no steps or handholds. Each ascent was a test of strength and will. His powerful fingers found minute crevices between stones. His feet braced against the rough surfaces. The rain made the climb treacherous, the blue stones slick and shining. The higher he climbed, the stronger the humming became. It vibrated through his bones, resonating with something deep within him. Alina had spoken of frequencies and resonance, concepts he grasped only dimly. Bahama, eye-seeking, but now he felt as if the tower was somehow attuned to him, responding to his presence. Halfway up, he heard them voices carried on the wind. The tribe was coming, led by Rusk, the chief elder. Argo climbed faster, the massive final stone secured to his back with leather straps. The weight threatened to pull him from the tower. With every movement, the humming intensified, pulsing now in a rhythm that matched his heartbeat. The stones beneath his hands grew warmer, almost hot to the touch. Was this his imagination or something more? Alina would have had a scientific explanation. Argo had only his instincts, which told him to continue, to complete what he had started. Near the top, disaster struck. A stone shifted under his weight. Loosened by the rain, Argo felt himself falling, one hand grasping desperately for purchase. His fingers caught the edge of a protruding stone. His body slamming against the tower. Pain shot through his shoulder, but he held on, feet scrambling for support. For a moment he hung suspended, the ground dizzyingly far below. Then with a roar of effort he pulled himself upward, finding new handholds, continuing his climb. The tribe had reached the base of the tower. Now Argo could hear Rusk shouting orders, demanding he descend immediately. Warriors readied ropes and grappling hooks, preparing to bring down the structure if he refused. Argo, it was Torvald's voice cutting through the clamor. "Complete your vow, we will hold them back." Through the rain, Argo saw conflict erupting below. Torvald and, surprisingly, several younger tribe members, including Mira, were positioning themselves between the tower and the warriors, not fighting but impeding, arguing, creating confusion. With a final surge of strength, Argo reached the top of the tower. The platform was barely large enough for him to kneel. Carefully he unslung the final stone from his back. Lightning flashed across the sky as he raised it above his head. "For you, Alina," he whispered, "for your journey home." He placed the stone at the center of the platform, completing his monument. 1,000 stones, 1,000 days, a vow fulfilled. For a moment nothing happened. The rain continued to fall. The tribe's voices rose in anger below, then a tremor ran through the structure. At first Argo thought the warriors had begun to dismantle the base, but the vibration came from within the tower itself. The stones were humming a low, almost musical tone that gradually increased in pitch and volume. The tribe fell silent. All eyes turned upward. The humming became a resonant chord that seemed to harmonize with the thunder, and then, one by one, the stones began to glow. Starting from the base, each stone illuminated from within, the blue deepening, the silver veins shimmering like flowing mercury. The light spread upward, stone by stone, a cascading wave of radiance climbing toward the final massive rock at the summit. The tribe retreated in fear, many falling to their knees. Rusk shouted for the warriors to bring down the tower, but none moved, transfixed by the transformation. When the light reached the 1,000 stone, a pulse of energy erupted, so bright that all had to shield their eyes. The rain seemed to pause in midair, suspended by some unseen force. A high-pitched sound filled the plain, not unpleasant but alien and otherworldly. And then came the cracking. The stones, all of them, began to fracture, hairline fissures spreading across their surfaces. The tribe cried out in alarm, many fleeing, others frozen in terror. Snort's Argo watched in stunned silence as his 1,000 days of work appeared to disintegrate before his eyes. But the tower did not collapse. Instead, as the quacks widened, something moved with it. Each stone, something alive. Eggs. Argo breathed, understanding dawning. They were eggs all along. The first creature emerged from near the base of the tower, a small winged being with a wingspan of perhaps 2 feet. Its skin was the same, deep blue as the stones, with silver patterns tracing its wings. It resembled the azurite flyers that soared high above the plains, but smaller, more delicate in form. Another emerged, then another. Soon the air was filled with them, circling and calling to one another in musical tones. The tribe watched in awe as hundreds of the creatures took flight, their wings catching the lightning flashes in dazzling displays of blue and silver. The blue devil birds, whispered one of the elders, their eggs. You've been gathering their eggs. But Argo barely heard. His attention was fixed on the stone beneath him, the 1,000th stone, the great stone which was undergoing its own transformation. The cracks there spread more slowly, more deliberately. The light pulsing from within was brighter, more intense. As the fissures widened, Argo was forced to descend, finding precarious footing on the now shifting structure. He reached the ground just as the tower began to collapse. Stones, empty shells now tumbling down around him. The tribe scattered to avoid the falling debris. From the chaos, a figure emerged, a man Argo didn't recognize, with a distinctive facial tattoos of the southern tribes. He held a bow, arrowed and aimed directly at Argo's heart. Death to the destroyer, the stranger shouted. Death to the one who brings the curse. He released the arrow. Argo weakened from his climb, and the tower's collapse couldn't quickly enough. The arrow streaked toward him, only to be intercepted by a blur of blue and silver. One of the flying creatures had placed itself in the arrow's path, sacrificing itself to save him. The southern tribe warrior notched another arrow, but before he could release, more of the creatures descended upon him, not attacking but surrounding, disorienting their wings, creating a barrier between him and his target. They protected Argo as if recognizing him through some inherent memory through Alina's imprint in the eggs he had handled for 1,000 days. The warrior stumbled backward, shouting. In terror, Dex, another voice cut. Through the tumult, a high-hatty warrior stepped forward, recognition in his eyes. It is Dex, the thief who fled to the southern tribes, Argo remembered. Now, Dex had been exiled years ago for stealing from the tribal stores during a famine. He had sworn vengeance before disappearing into the wilderness. Apparently, he had found refuge with the southern tribes and now returned with their beliefs and hatreds. The rain stopped abruptly, the clouds parted, allowing the red sun to shine through. And atop the ruins of the tower, the 1,000th egg finally split open. The creature that emerged was unlike the others, much larger with a wingspan that stretched at least 15 ft from tip to tip. Its form was not purely animal but seemed to incorporate humanoid elements. A face with distinct features, limbs that were neither purely wing nor purely arm, and as it unfurled itself fully, raising its magnificent head to the sky, Argo felt his heart stop. The face, though blue-skinned and alien, bore an unmistakable resemblance to Alina. The great creature spread its wings and launched into the air with a powerful thrust. It circled once above the scattered tribe members who prostrated themselves in terror. Then it descended, coming to rest directly before Argo. Up close, the resemblance was even more striking. The eyes, Alina's eyes, regarded him with intelligence in something more, recognition. Impossible, Argo whispered. The creature tilted its head, studying him. When it spoke, its voice was musical and strange, yet the words were clear. Same language Alina had taught him. Evidence that it had inherited not just fragments of memory but knowledge and skills as well. You call me back, it said. 1,000 stones, 1,000 days, a beacon I could follow home. The tribe gasped. Collectively, Rusk and the other elders fell to their knees. Alina, Argo's voice broke on the name. The creature's expression shifted, becoming both sad and gentle. I have her memories, fragments of what she was. The stones, the eggs, they absorb genetic material, energy patterns, consciousness. For 1,000 days you handled them, imprinted them with your devotion, and her body was returned to the earth. Near here, was it not? Argo nodded. Mutely, he had buried Alina at the base of where the tower now stood. The eggs absorbed what remained. Not all, but enough. The creature extended a wing-like appendage toward him, almost like a hand reaching out. I am not her, but I am not entirely separate from what she was. The smaller creatures continued to circle overhead, their movements becoming more coordinated, more purposeful. The tribe watched in terrified fascination as the flock formed intricate patterns against the sky. They respond to me, the Alina creature explained. I am their queen, their mother, their goddess. A goddess, repeated Rusk, still kneeling. She has returned as a goddess to save us. Creature turned its gaze upon the chief elder, and its expression hardened. I remember you. You refused to help when I was dying. You called me a curse. Rusk's face drained of color. Great One, we did not understand. Be silent, the creature commanded, and the chief elder's voice died in his throat. The being turned back to Argo. They wish to worship me, to use me as they tried to use her for their benefit alone. Argo found his voice at last. What will you do? Before the creature could answer, chaos erupted once more. Dex had broken free from the circling creatures and now charged toward them, a spear raised. "High death to the sky demons," he screamed. Several warriors moved to intercept him, but they were too slow. The spear left his hand, hurling toward the Alina creatures unprotected back. Argo reacted without thinking. He threw himself into the spear's path, feeling the bone tip pierce his shoulder. The force knocked him backward into the creature's arms. His blood spattered its blue skin. Argo, the cry was pure Alina, filled with the same anguish he had felt when she lay dying. The creature's wings curled around him protectively as warriors subdued Dex. Argo grimaced through the pain, reaching up to touch the creature's face. "I failed to save her," he said. "I would not fail again." The creature's eyes filled with an emotion too complex to name. It gently lowered Argo to the ground, then placed its hand over his wound. The skin around its palm seemed to change color slightly, secreting a substance that had a cooling, numbing effect when it touched his injured flesh. The pain receded, though the wound remained. "What you have done cannot be undone," it said softly, "but perhaps it can be transformed." Rising to its full height, the creature addressed the tribe. "Your fear has led you to cruelty. Your superstition has blinded you to truth." Its gaze swept over them, lingering on Rusk. "You cast out one who showed only compassion. You rejected knowledge that could have saved lives." Rusk prostrated himself. "Forgive us, Great One. We Snorts will make amends. We will worship you as you deserve." "I do not seek worship." Creature's voice reverberated across the plain. "I seek understanding." It turned to where Dex struggled against his captors. This one came to kill because he was taught to fear what he does not comprehend. This cycle must end. With a gesture, the creature summoned its flying offspring. They gathered above, forming a living canopy that cast blue-tinged shadows over the assembly. "These are not weapons," it said. "They are a new species born of this world, yet changed by contact with another." "As am I." It looked to Argo. "As are you." Torvald stepped forward, his old face lined with wonder. "What would you have us do, Great One?" The creature considered for a long moment. "Learn, grow, adapt." Its wings shifted in the sunlight. "Alina came to study this world, to understand its wonders, honor her memory by doing the same." Murmurs spread through the tribe. Some nodded in acceptance, others looked doubtful. Rusk, ever the politician, was the first to speak. "We will follow your guidance, Great One. Under your rule our tribe." "Well, I will not rule you," the creature interrupted. "That is not why I was called back." It looked to the sky where its children continued their aerial dance. "They are waiting for my command, my first command as their queen." The flock above responded immediately. They gathered into a tighter formation, hovering expectant. When the creature opened its eyes again, there was resolution in them. "Go," it said, the word directed upward. "You are free. Find your own path, your own destiny." The effect was immediate. The flock dispersed, spreading outward in all directions, their musical calls fading as they vanished over the horizon. The tribe watched in confusion. Rusk found his courage enough to speak. "Great One, why do you send away your servants? They could have protected us, hunted for us." "They are not servants," the creature interrupted. "They are living beings with their own purpose." It turned to Argo, helping him to his feet. "As am I." With deliberate movements, the winged being approached a jagged rock outcropping near the ruins of the tower. Without hesitation, it spread its magnificent wings to their full span one last time, displaying them in the sunlight. Then, before anyone could react, it brought the edge of one wing down hard against the sharp stone. The membrane tore with a sickening sound. The creature did not cry out, but its face contorted in pain. It repeated the action with the other wing, methodically destroying the delicate structures that allowed it to fly. The tribe cried out in horror. Argo rushed forward, trying to stop it, but the creature held him at bay with one clawed hand. "What are you doing?" he demanded, anguished. "Choosing it." Clear's throat replied simply, continuing its self-mutilation until both wings hung in tatters from its back. Blood, silvery blue rather than red, ran down its sides. When it was done, the creature stood straighter. Despite the obvious pain, it addressed the stunned tribe. "I am no goddess. I will not rule you. I will not be worshipped." Its gaze swept over them. "And I will not be feared." Rusk stepped forward, his expression calculating despite his shock. "But you could help us even without your wings, your knowledge." No, the word was final. The creature turned to Argo. "I choose this. To be mortal, to live as she might have lived had her body been strong enough for this world." Understanding dawned on Argo's face. "You're staying." Clear's throat. "If you will have me." Creature: "No, not a creature any longer, but something new, something in between." Extended its hand to him. "I am not Elena. I cannot be her, but I carry what she felt for you, what she would want." Before Argo could respond, a new commotion arose from the edge of the gathering. Warriors were dragging forward a group of strangers, 5 men, with the distinctive facial markings of the southern tribes. "We found them approaching from the south," reported one of the warriors. "They carry weapons." The leader of the strangers, a tall man with elaborate scarification across his blue chest, stepped forward. "We come seeking Dex. He left our village days ago." Speaking of demons and vengeance, Dex struggled against his captors. "Coda, tell them about the sickness that came after the star fell." Coda, the southern tribe leader, surveyed the scene with wary eyes. His gaze lingered on the transformed creature, then on the ruins of the tower, then on Argo. "It is true that sickness came to our village," he said carefully. "Many died." Dex convinced some that it was because of the star that fell, because of the Skywoman who lived among your tribe. "And you believed him?" Margot asked. Coda shook his head. "I believe that fear and ignorance were spreading faster than any disease. I came to see the truth with my own eyes." He gestured to Dex. "This one speaks only of destruction." Clear's throat. "I would hear another perspective." The creature stepped forward, its movement awkward, without the balance of its wings, but determined. The sickness was not brought by Elena, by the Skywoman, but her knowledge might have helped prevent it. It turned to address both tribes. Now, she came from a world where such diseases were understood, where healing went beyond rituals and herbs. She could have talked at you had you been willing to learn. "And now, Esta, now you have choice," said the creature. "Continue to fear what you do not understand, or embrace the possibility of change." A tense silence fell over the gathering. The red sun climbed higher in the sky, its heat intensifying. Finally, Mira, who had remained quiet throughout the confrontation, stepped forward. "I choose to learn," she said simply, "as the Skywoman would have taught us. Others from the tribe gradually joined her. First Torvald, then some of the younger members, even a few warriors moved too. Stand with them, Koda and his southern tribe members exchanged glances, then the leader nodded, we too would learn. Rusk and the more conservative elders remained apart, their expressions guarded, but they made no move to interfere. The balance of power had shifted. The creature observed this division with somber eyes. Change comes slowly, but it comes. It turned back to Argo, who still stood bleeding from his encounter with Dex's spear. The wound is deep, it needs treatment. Mara approached cautiously. I have studied the healing herbs. I can help if you will allow it. Argo looked at her with new respect. Elena would have approved. As Mira began to treat his wound, Argo watched the creature, the being that carried fragments of Elena within it. It moved among the tribe members now, answering questions, its manner reminiscent of how Elena had spoken of her scientific discoveries with patience and wonder. What will you call yourself? Argo asked when it returned to his side. You said you are not Elena. The creature considered this. Names have power. They shape identity. It looked to the sky where the moon had begun to rise, pale against the red sun's dominance. Call me in, it means new beginning in the language of the stars. And Argo repeated, testing the sound of it. Dex, still restrained but now largely ignored, spat on the ground. You fools, you think this changes anything? This abomination will bring only death and suffering. Koda regarded his former tribesmen with pity. The only suffering I see comes from your own fear, Dex. He turned to Rusk. What will you do with him? The chief elder seemed to aid before their eyes the events of the day, stripping away his authority and certainty. Once we would have executed him for attempting to kill a goddess. He looked to Nara, but it seems we have no goddess to avenge. No execution, Nara said firmly. Death only breeds more fear. Exile then, suggested Torvald, to the far plains beyond the western ridge. Rusk nodded wearily. So be it. As warriors led Dex away, still shouting threats and prophecies of doom, Argo turned to In. And what of us? Where will we go? Nar looked at the ruins of the tower, at the scattered tribe, at the uncertain future that lay before them. We will build something new, not a tower to the stars, but a bridge between worlds. She took his hand, her blue fingers intertwining with his. Together, the days that followed were filled with both wonder and tension. Some of the tribe returned to the village, unwilling to accept the changes that Narrow represented. Others remained, helping to construct a new settlement around the ruins of the tower. The southern tribe members, Jadia members led by Koda, joined them in bringing their own knowledge and traditions. Argo's wound healed slowly. The spear had gone deep, damaging muscle and scraping bone. Nar attended him, using a combination of tribal medicine and what she remembered of Elena's scientific knowledge. Her hands, though clawed and alien, moved with Elena's gentle precision. One night, as they sat together beneath the stars, Nara suddenly tensed, her head tilting as if listening to a distant sound. What is it? Argo asked. Children, she said, her voice tight with concern. My children, the ones who hatched from the tower. Something is wrong. Before Argo could question her further, a scout burst into the camp, breathless with urgency. Hunters from Rusk's village, he gasped. They're killing the Blue Flyers, dozens already. Dead, Nar's face contorted with pain. I can feel them, she whispered. Their fear, their confusion, despite her injured wings, she insisted on going to the hunting grounds. Argo, still recovering from his own wound, would not let her go alone. Together with Koda, Torvald, and several warriors, they set out into the night. They found the massacre in a narrow canyon. Rusk's hunters had trapped a group of the blue flyers and were systematically slaughtering them with spears and arrows. The creatures, confused and unable to escape the canyon walls, circled in panic. Stop! Nara's voice carried such power that the hunters froze mid-action. She strode forward, her ruined wings visible beneath her cloak. These are living beings. They have harmed no one. Rusk himself stepped from the shadows, his face hard. They are abominations, unnatural, a threat to the balance. The only threat to balance is fear, Nara replied. These creatures are part of this world now. Killing them will not undo what has been done. For a tense moment, it seemed violence would erupt between the two groups. Then, unexpectedly, one of Rusk's own hunters lowered his spear. I will not kill them, he declared. They saved my son during the tower's collapse. One shielded him from falling stones. Others began to murmur similar experiences. The creatures had not attacked during their emergence, despite the tribe's hostility. Some had even protected children and elders during the chaos. Rusk's authority wavered as more of his hunters stepped back from the slaughter. The chief elder's face twisted with frustrated rage. You would follow this thing, this mockery of the Skywoman. We would follow wisdom, said the hunter who had first lowered his weapon, as you once taught us to do. Defeated, Rusk ordered his remaining loyal hunters to withdraw. As they departed, he turned to Argo, his expression cold. This is not over, he warned. Nature finds a way to purge what does not belong. After they had gone in, approached the surviving flyers. They responded to her presence, circling closer, their musical calls taking on a questioning tone. She raised her hands toward them, and though she no longer had wings to match their flight, something passed between them. Communication beyond words. Go, she told them finally. Far from here, find your own place in this world. The creatures rose as one, spiraling upward, until they were lost among the stars. Argo came to stand beside Nar, watching until the last blue flyer disappeared from sight. You could have commanded them to stay, he observed, to protect us. Then I would be no different from Rusk, she replied, controlling others out of fear. As they returned to the settlement, Argo noticed how Nar's movements had become more fluid, more natural. Her body was adapting to life without wings, finding new balance. Yet sometimes he caught her looking skyward with an expression that spoke of loss. Will you regret it? He asked one evening as they sat watching the moon rise. Giving up your wings, your power. N's gaze turned skyward. Elena once told her about a concept from her world, freedom. She said it was the ability to choose one's own path, even when that path is difficult. She touched the scarred stumps where her wings had been. This was my choice, my freedom. The new settlement grew rapidly. Shelters were constructed in a circle around what remained of the tower base. Mira established a healing hut, combining traditional remedies with the scientific principles Nar taught her. Young hunters from both tribes trained together, learning each other's methods. Not all embraced the changes. 3 Times warriors from Rusk's faction came, in the night seeking to destroy what they saw as an abomination. Twice they were driven away. The third time they came in greater numbers, armed with torches and spears. Argo and Coda led the defense, positioning their own warriors strategically around the settlement, but it was Nara who ended the conflict before it began. She walked alone to meet the attackers, unarmed, her mutilated wings exposed. I could have ruled you from the sky, she told them. I chose to walk among you instead. If you still fear me, then strike me down, but know that I am as mortal as you now, as vulnerable to your spears and arrows. The warriors hesitated, confused by her courage and her words. Their leader, a veteran hunter named Varric, stepped forward. The council says you will bring doom upon us all. He said that you are not what you appear to be. And what do you see when you look at me? Nara asked. Varric studied her, his gaze moving from her face still hauntingly reminiscent of Alina's, to her blue skin, to her ruined wings. I see something I do not understand, he admitted finally. Then stay, Nara suggested. Learn to understand if you still wish to kill me. After that I will not resist. To everyone's surprise, Varric ordered his warriors to lower their weapons. 3 days, he said. We will stay 3 days. Then we decide. Those 3 days became a turning point. Varric and his warriors observed the settlement, participated in hunts, listened to Nara's teachings. They saw how the knowledge she shared improved hunting tools, better methods of preserving food, more effective medicines, benefited all. On the 4th day, when it came time to decide, Varric and most of his warriors chose to remain. The council will not be pleased, he told Argo. They fear what they cannot control, and you do not. Varric shrugged his massive shoulders. I fear starvation more. My children go hungry in the village. Here they eat. Word spread to other settlements. Gradually more came, first out of curiosity, then to stay. They brought their families, their skills, their traditions. The settlement became a meeting place of diverse knowledge, a fusion of the old ways and the new. 3 moons after the tower's transformation, the settlement had grown into a true village. Simple dwellings constructed in a circle around what remained of Argo's monument. Members of both the Hadassi and southern tribes had chosen to join the community, drawn by curiosity and the promise of new knowledge. Argo and Naro's home stood at the center, a structure that combined traditional Hydrarasi design with innovations inspired by Alina's descriptions of Earth architecture. Nearby, a larger building served as what Nara called a school, where she shared Alina's knowledge of science, agriculture, and medicine. The transition had not been without challenges. Nara's body, while stronger than Alina's human form, had been still struggled with certain aspects of Terran 2's environment. The double gravity taxed her altered physiology, and she tired easily. The remnants of her wings, now healed and discarded stumps, caused her pain during weather changes. Yet she persevered, driven by the fragments of Alina's memories and her own evolving identity. She was neither Alina nor purely the queen of the Blue Flyers, but something unique, a bridge between species, between worlds. Argo watched her now from the doorway of their home. As clear as throat, she demonstrated to a group of children how to use a simple microscope fashioned from salvaged parts of Alina's ship, her face still so reminiscent of his lost love, lit with excitement as the children exclaimed over what they saw. Tavald approached, carrying a spear with a new design, a combination of traditional Hayasi craftsmanship and Alina's engineering principles. The hunting party is ready, the old man said. Will you join us? Argo nodded, taking the weapon. How fair is the village? He asked as they walked toward the gathering hunters. Rusk sends messengers monthly, seeking to persuade our people to return. Torvald replied, some have gone back. Most choose to stay, and the southern tribe reports the sickness has abated since they implemented Nar's sanitation methods. The old hunter chuckled. He credits the sky wisdom rather than any goddess, as it should be. Argo said they joined the hunting party, a mix of Hayasi and Southerners, men and women both. Another change inspired by Nar's teaching. Alina had told stories of Earth cultures where gender did not dictate roles, where skills and inclination mattered more than tradition. As they prepared to depart, Nara approached. She wore a cloak that concealed her wing stumps, not from shame but for practical comfort. Around her neck hung Alina's pendant, the one bearing her mother's image. Be safe, she said, touching Argo's face with a gentle hand. Always. I got you, say you promised. She smiled. Alina is a smile yet not, and pressed something into his hand, a small blue stone with silver veins, not an egg. This time just a common rock from the plains. What's this for? Argo asked. A reminder. Nara said, that sometimes what seems like an ending is merely a transformation. Argo tucked the stone into his pouch, then kissed her, still marveling at how right it felt despite the differences. She was not Alina, yet she carried Alina's essence, different yet familiar, lean yet more connected to him than any one of his own kind had ever been. 1,000 stones, 1,000 days, a vow fulfilled in a way he could never have imagined. As he set out with the hunting party, Argo glanced back one last time. Nar stood framed in the red sunlight, her blue skin glowing, her hand raised in farewell. The moon hung visible in the daylight sky behind her, a pale companion to the dominant sun. I don't want to be their queen, Nara had said on that first day, echoing words from a dream, from a memory not entirely her own. I want to be your in. And she was not a goddess to be worshipped or feared, but a companion to walk beside him. Together they would build something neither of their worlds had seen before. Bell.